Time now for all things Gators, all things orange and blue. Dan Hicken and Frangie. What's up, Hick?
Well, Frank, I'm doing okay. Thank you, Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, se-ortho.com, for all your orthopedic needs and allowing us to chat about our beloved alma mater. That I used a word, Frank, that I never thought I would use. And I think it unfortunately fits, and it pains my heart to say it. But when it comes to Florida football, we are now irrelevant.
Yeah,
Irrelevant. We
yeah,
have
that's
not won
right.
a conference title in 15 years. We are now. Listen, I know some Gator will always be relevant, right? I get it, but in the grand national scope of college football, I mean, we have fallen and we cannot get up, bro.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. You're 100% right. I told you this weeks ago on this podcast. We've become Kentucky and South Carolina and Missouri, and that's and I don't know Missouri's better there, but that's what we've become. And there's no and here's the problem. We're so close to turning the corner a little bit. We knew this wasn't going to be a 9 or 10 win season. Everybody knew that.
Right.
But you can't let the ones get away that you should win. You can't play badly. I mean, look, they're 5-4. They're an eyelash the last second drive against South Carolina for being 4-5. And and what's sad about it is, and we're going to talk about the game on Saturday against Arkansas, is of all the things Billy Napier might not be. They're not firing Billy Napier, by the way. He's got a great recruiting class coming in. They're not getting rid of him. Whether you want him to or not, that's not happening. Nor should they, in my opinion.
I would agree.
He's got to clean some things up. But what most bothersome about the most recent game, Dan, is the fact that the one thing Billy Napier, not the one thing, that's not fair, but one of the things Billy Napier, his strengths are, we thought, organizational skills and systems and detail. Well, could the sideline look any more disorganized at the end of the game? That's organization and its detail and its systems, and that was a disaster. I mean, how do you not have one coach who stands on the sideline with his back to the playing field, with his arms out like this, telling the the field goal team either go in or don't, and then they send him in or they hold him back? And the fact that there's not a system in place for that. That to me is the unforgivable, man. How in the world is there not a system in place to tell those guys what they're doing? And it was coming out of an Arkansas timeout. And by the way, I will tell you, I think if they don't, Graham Mertz was marvelous on that drive with no timeouts. If they spike the ball like normal, then they run off the field like normal, and the field goal team runs on like normal. There's no penalties. He makes the 39-yarder. There's no chaos, and Florida wins the game. So I think that gaffe cost them the football game. I truly believe that.
I don't disagree, and I think there are a lot of things that are driving me nuts. But to me, the red flag nuts is why he won't fix special teams. It started week 1 against Utah. Number three, 10 men on the field. I can't for the life of me. It doesn't get better. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Billy, just say, look, I'm going to fix it. I'm in charge. I'm going to have it right. I don't care who you and learn. I know in the offseason you're going to come back and say, oh, I'll get an OC. You better. I'll get a special teams coordinator. You better. That's not right now. It finally cost him a game, Frank, because he won't fix special teams. I'll dive into the other things, but that one thing makes me crazy as a fan.
And I agree with everything you just said. I'm right with you on that. And to that end, Dan, the problem is, he's a nice guy by all accounts, but if he says one more time, well, it'll all be evaluated and it's all under review and it's my job to take a close look, and we know that. Everybody knows we know it's under evaluation. We know you're going to take a close look. Every part of the program is your responsibility. That's not what we want to hear anymore. What fans, media, everyone wants to hear is, we blew it. That's my fault. We'll do it differently next time. That's what we're not getting. We blew it. It's my fault. We'll do it differently next week. We'll do it differently on Monday. Not at the end of the year, we'll evaluate. No, we know that. And I think that's one of the things that drives people crazy, Dan. That was inexcusable. They looked unorganized. I said this all along. And by the way, think about this for a second. If they do it right and he makes the kick and they win, they're 6-3, 4-2. We're talking about this great comeback, how they didn't back down after getting behind 14-0. We're
Right.
talking about how Mertz led this drive for the ages. We're talking all about that. Instead, we're all, oh my God, how did this happen? Because he blew it, to your point about special teams. So he's got to get that fixed. He doesn't have great talent. It's really young talent, but he's got to get that fixed. The problem is people now don't think he's a good coach. Let's cut to the chase, okay?
Sure.
The problem now is people doubt that he's a good coach. Whether that's fair or not is not the issue. Right now, there's doubt out there in the media, the national media, the local media, and there's doubt in the fan base as to whether or not Billy Napier is a particularly good football coach. And that's the dagger. That's what could keep your recruiting class from coming in. That's what could keep donors upset. Those are emails and calls. I can only imagine what Scott Strickland got on Monday. And so that's the biggest problem.
My spirit is lifted because I keep hearing people telling me, and I haven't seen anybody really wavering yet. So and I think the NIL has changed things. So I think they have a real good shot at keeping the class together. And for that, I'm grateful. And that's probably the most important thing, because I got news for you. LSU, Missouri, FSU, no. We lost Swamp Magic on Saturday, which is another big, mistake by Napier. You got to win that game. And he lost the fan base. That was a game he had to win to keep like you said. So now I go to the defense, and I see a defense give up 488 yards to a team that scored 3 points against Mississippi State. That's the obvious. But when I look at it, I know they got Rocket Sanders back. And you know what? He looked like he was playing on one leg, and he still ran over our guys. And the last two runs in overtime, where I knew Florida had to score a touchdown, I'm like, they must get a touchdown on this drive. And they got a field goal. And I said, we're in trouble. And we got a wonderful penalty. And we got them back 1st and 20. And you knew it. And I knew it. And 85,000 knew it. The only guy who didn't know it was our defensive coordinator, that the quarterback was going to run the football, which he did, wide open. The sea parted. Are you kidding me? And because they had figured out late in the game, he's got to run. They can't account for that, and they couldn't, even though they were playing one safety. The other safety was up, but he was getting blocked. And then the next play, just terrible tackling, Frank, the whole day. I say I felt like the boys almost quit on those two plays. Like they're just reaching and nobody's striking. It was terrible. And then Jefferson threw the touchdown pass. I got news for you, Florida. That was KJ Jefferson. You may or may not get Jaden Daniels, but if you do, they'll hang 70 on Florida. Brady Cook is a terrific quarterback, and Jordan Travis is a Heisman candidate. Good luck.
Yeah, and by the way, on Saturday night, if you don't get Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier is going to hang 50. I mean, they got a good backup. Your point is right. After you blew everything, including the offensive possession, 2nd and 10, you're running the ball, not in overtime. You can't overtime, and that's where Billy doesn't have a knack. I understand incomplete pass on 1st down, run it on 2nd, so you have a 3rd and 6 instead of a 3rd and 10, but not in overtime.
No,
overtime, your neck's got to take over the sense of urgency. You got to fire it down there 3 times.
You must score a touchdown in your mind, because if you get a field goal, they now know that, and they're playing for a win. They got nothing to lose. They're in 4-down territory right from the rip, most likely, in my opinion. So
I think this, Stan. I think coach. See here's the problem with no special teams coordinator. If you didn't have a special teams coordinator, but your head coach wasn't the offensive coordinator, then in that end game, he's out there managing the sideline, managing who goes in, managing. Instead, he's looking at his play sheet, because he's not a great multitasker. So he's looking at his play sheet. He's not even paying attention to whether or not the kicking team's going on the field. Most head coaches, whether they're play callers or not, they're managing that process.
And let's not forget, Frank, let's not forget, we lost 2 timeouts in the second half because of that exact situation, which wouldn't those been nice to have on the last drive, which maybe we can then go win the game and not have to worry about just trying to get a field goal. But
yes, being so organized and scripted and planned. And I mean, we talked more about those dang black uniforms last week. I know, me too. I was depressed before I got on it. So, and back to your point, you said something. Once they was 1st and 20, had the big run. I don't think emotionally or mentally or psychologically they purposely quit.
Right.
But I do. But to your point, you're dead on what you're saying. and that is they said, "What the heck?" You know, they were out of gas. They were emotionally beat. Could that touchdown drive from Arkansas been any easier?
Oh,
If the guy that dropped the touchdown, they had 3 more chances. They'd have thrown another one.
it was over.
And so but anyway, listen, they lost the game they should have won. What now? If I was Billy Napier, and he does not do this, he didn't do it yesterday. If I was Billy Napier, and I wish somebody would coach him, I would walk into that press conference and say, "Listen, I blew that. I should have been on the field making sure who's in and who's out. I blew it. Not my coaches, not the player who's assigned it, which is ridiculous. I should have been out there. I should have made sure the kicking team stayed off the field until we spiked the ball. I should have made sure that transition happened. And I'm changing the way we're doing that. And starting next week, I will be in charge of it because I blew it. I'm the head coach and I blew it.
So easy, Frank.
Yeah, my system failed. I'm the head coach and my system failed." That's what people want to hear.
Right.
They want to hear people say, "I blew that." Not, "Well, we're going to evaluate it. This is in charge of that." Hey, I know Gator fans. I know I watched too. I know I messed that up, and I'm going to fix it. And that's what we're not hearing because we're hearing, "Well, we'll evaluate." Well, and so Dan, let me ask you a question. Right now, as an SEC football coach, not as a recruiter, not as a CEO, not as an organizer, is he overmatched?
He seems to be. I mean, that seems to be the answer. The answer is yes. It looks like it. That's what he shows us on game day, right? The way he manages the clock. You've complained all season long on the podcast about not the lack of rhythm of the offense. They just now have finally. I was frustrated, and I even tweeted this out on Saturday. Stop horizontal. Vertical is there. Throw the ball that way, not that way. They have that way figured out. That way they don't. Eugene Wilson is featured in the first quarter, disappears for quarters 2 and 3. We bog down. They go back to him in the fourth quarter. We start scoring again.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, my man.
It's almost like the golfer, Dan. Stay with me on this. The golfer, okay, who reads all the golf manuals and does all the training tools and has his lessons from the pro and walks out there now because he's so organized and he's so detailed and he knows the pros said this, and keep your head down and left arm straight and the training mechanism. And that's all fine until all of a sudden you block one right and you're under the branch. And then once you're under the branch, it's knack and know-how. You know, it's no longer what's planned and organized and attentive to detail. Do you have the knack and know-how to hit that knockdown shot under the branch? Well, that's what he doesn't have. And something else too. If you look at the I'm gonna quiz you. Can I quiz you? You might take a quiz right here. Okay. Tell me the 3 or 4 top analysts on his staff. Okay. Well, I'll stop you. You can't name any of them.
No.
Neither can I. But do you know the analysts on Saban's staff over the years? Sarkisian, Kiffin, Charlie Strong, Bill O'Brien. In the Jaguars brought in Bob Sutton, and it used to be Monty Kiffin. You know what these coaches do? Dom Capers. You bring in a veteran guy who's been there, done that. He's not a coach. He sits in the press box, but he can guide you on how you've managed these situations before. Right. Florida's guy, I think, I don't know. I don't act like I know. I get the sense that the analysts are a bunch of young guys who help in the recruiting, and look up to Billy and learn from Billy.
Right.
I want somebody on the staff that Billy can and has learned from. I think it's great. We have this 29-year-old defensive coordinator who's rising, but I wouldn't mind having a 68-year-old guy on the staff that's been a head coach and been around. And again, I think that's just part of that's one of the things that worries me. So when I said is he overmatched, someone's going to see the podcast and think, well, Frangie thinks he should be fired. I don't think that. I don't want him fired. I want to keep that class together. I want him to correct some of the things he's done. But I want someone to bring him in and say, Billy, here's some things we got to do better. He clearly doesn't have a knack. He clearly doesn't know how to hit that knockdown shot under the branch because that's not in the training guide and the instruction manuals that he's been preparing on. Okay. That's what he did. That's it. I said the same thing about the uniforms. I don't want to know in June every uniform combination because it's planned out. I want there to be a gut on Tuesday when my player comes in and says, hey, coach, let's wear all orange in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Because that's my knack. I'm adjusting on the fly, and I don't think he can do that at all. I think that to me is the biggest concern in the Napier era, at least so far.
And so now, you're getting out coached by some of these SEC coaches. Long-term confidence is now getting lost by Florida fan. The guys and listen, he's had great crowds at the Swamp. They've been electric. They've been loud. They've been trying. So, and he's I felt like Dan Mullen didn't have the support that Billy Napier has.
Agreed. Agreed.
But I don't again, I agree with you. You can't you gotta ride this out and you gotta hope that he can figure things out, but it is getting frustrated. I had laid out the plan, and the plan was there, man. Win one of the Columbia games. They
I
did,
know.
right?
Yeah.
But you had to beat Arkansas and then try to get an upset in the 4 rivalry games.
Correct.
Frank, is there any chance? Do you give Florida any chance of winning any of these last 3 games?
I'm going to say no with a caveat.
Okay.
Okay.
Because it would really
Yeah. Right.
behoove Billy Napier
Yeah.
to find a way to win one. I don't care if it's Missouri. If you
Right.
can win one of these games, Frank, you get a bowl game. You get the
Right.
track. I mean, you
So
got
for so the first answer is no. I think they're going to lose all their games. I think they're
Yeah,
going
I
to
do.
finish 5-7. That's my honest answer. Having said that, look, the guy did go to Louisiana where they weren't very good, and he was 22-1 in his last 3 years in the conference. He got the job for a reason. He's not he obviously there's some good in Billy Napier. He's also immensely likable. You know why they all show up? Because if he was ever good, everybody would love the guy.
Yeah,
He's immensely likable. He's
right.
doing it the right way. He's doing all the things fans want, facilities and recruiting. That's what every fan likes, right? He's doing all that. So he's immensely likable if he could figure out some of these things. Back to your question. No, I don't think they're going to win any of those 3 games. Can and will are 2 different questions. Can they? Yeah, I think there's swamp magic. You get FSU at home. FSU has stumbled a little bit. They had to pull away late against some of these teams they've played. And I think Florida's got some good pieces. The irony is one of the best pieces is the quarterback. Nobody saw that coming.
We wasted that too. Yeah.
And you wasted the quarterback. Do you realize this? That guy's averaging 267 yards a game. Danny's completed 74% of his passes.
Terrific.
17 touchdowns and 2 picks.
Terrific.
And the 2 picks hit the receivers in the hands. So we're wasting a really good quarterback that nobody thought was going to be a good quarterback. So you go to Baton Rouge, Daniels doesn't play. They're a little bit asleep at the wheel. They just had an emotional loss. They might have lost their quarterback. You got a pretty good quarterback. Yeah, you've got a puncher's chance. You had no puncher's chance against Georgia. All right, none. You wouldn't have a puncher's chance against Alabama. Right. But against these 3 teams, FSU, because it's at home, the other 2, yeah, there's a puncher's chance to win one of them. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to go 5-7 and miss a bowl. But I think there's a puncher's chance in these games more than there has been before. That's why the Arkansas game mattered so much, Dan. Because if you'd have won that, you go in there 6-3, 4-2. LSU's also 6-3. You got the same record. The line would have been about 7. That's a chance to, and you go in with some confidence. Yeah. Now you go in with no confidence and trying to defend yourself. So because they lost Arkansas, I think beating Arkansas, they had a better chance to steal one of those 3. What do you think?
I think because of the quarterbacks that you're playing, and I'm going to assume Daniels plays, but even if Nussmeier plays, their offense is really good.
Right.
And we were missing 3 starters, and I want to say that. But I saw this Matt Baker, who covers the Gators, put this out, and I saw this on Twitter. And he said Florida has given up 39 points or more 3 games in a row for the first time since 1917.
About that.
I mean, Florida Gator football. I mean, obviously Spurrier offense, urban offense, but the defense was always legit, man. Yeah, and you would watch the Gators, and the other team would run the ball, and somebody would strike that ball carrier a yard in the backfield, and that's how they won football games. And man, oh man, it's been bad. And I don't know. So my point is, you know why they can't beat FSU? Because Jordan Travis won't allow it. They might hang around for a half, but Jordan Travis is a outstanding. Brady Cook is a really good quarterback, right? He won't allow Missouri to lose at night in Columbia. And Jaden Daniels is the best of the 3 if he plays, so that's why I don't think they can win.
Yeah, and I don't either. And by the way, Austin Armstrong's done a great job early on.
Yeah.
I sure wish there was a Charlie Strong, Kevin Steele, 63-year-old guy that's been around helping him. I just wish there was somebody like that helping him. So we'll see.
They all look overmatched. That's the problem. The staff looks overmatched, and he doesn't help himself in the press conferences. You're right. Somebody should get to him. Strickland has got to provide some leadership. People are mad at him. It's a mess. As far as Florida football, it is. I mean, it's irrelevant, and it's hard for me to say that word, but that's what we've become.
Well, so anyway, if you steal a game, again, the future of Florida football, I hate to say it this way, the whole future of Florida football rests on Lagway in this recruiting class. And it
I
really,
know.
and by the way, I'll tell you the other thing, two other things. A, you got to be more active in the portal because you
Yes.
can't be playing all young guys again. Secondly, the one thing that will really help, there are some good players. They're just playing for the first time.
Yeah.
They need Mertz to come back,
Yeah.
which I think he will, but he may not. He's had a great year. They need all those young guys back next year. They need Shamar James and Scooby and Jackson and
by the way,
Banks
I don't know enough about this, but I'll jump in, Frank. They need him to come back bigger and stronger.
Correct.
I've read things about this. I don't know anything about the strength coach. It's easy to blame the strength coach when you're losing, but they do get pushed around. And so you're wondering, is the strength coach good enough? I wonder that.
I think part of that, just my opinion, I think part of it is you didn't recruit great players, so it's hard to develop a guy that's not a great potential for doing. But I think the other part of it is, and I'm not making excuses, I'm answering your question. They play a lot of really young guys.
Yes.
And there's a difference between a 22-year-old man and an 18-year-old teenager. There's a difference in all of us, and they're playing against a lot of 20. That's the problem when you play FSU. FSU's got all those 23-year-olds, and so I think they're playing a lot. That's why if you come back, I think they'll naturally be bigger and stronger. I mean, one of the reasons Graham Mertz and Ricky Pearsall might be the two best players on the team is they're both 22, 23 years old. They don't have a lot of those guys, and they need more guys like that. So let's hope they get to LSU, play their best game, get a puncher's chance, and see what happens. Did you watch the hoops last night? I know you're not a hoops guy. Did you watch? Did you have a TV?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I watched the first half.
The first half.
I did.
Okay.
I know some names. And again, you'll give a report. Definitely bigger.
Yeah.
I got a 6'11" guy shooting threes. I like that. The kid from Australia, I think.
Yeah.
Condon.
Right. He made two threes, and then
the other big kid from Marshall ain't going to be making those. Those were, from what I understand, those were sort of lucky. Those aren't going to happen. Free throw shooting was atrocious.
Right.
And I felt like they should have won that game by 30. But I was intrigued.
Yeah, I was. I watched the whole game.
I'm not like you. You're going to tell me they're going to the Final Four.
Yeah. Okay. Unlike you, I care about my alma mater, so I watched the whole game. Okay, and I watched the 7-1 guy make 2 3-pointers after the 6-11 guy made the 2 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. But by the way, they were 15 of 30 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
I didn't see enough to think they're going to be really good. I saw enough to think they're not going to be as embarrassing inside because they got some bigger guys. The guy that might be their best player, one of their three, Kugel's their best player, but the next best player might be this guy Pullen who didn't play, not playing.
Yeah,
for
that's
3
good.
games.
That's good.
Here's what I think. I don't know how many games they're going to win. I don't know how they'll do. What I do think is, Dan, they'll look and feel more like one of those good SEC teams. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They may not be any good. They may be good, but they didn't look like, suddenly we blinked and the SEC's really good at basketball. Forever it wasn't. And then all of a sudden you look up and Nate Oates is there and Kentucky's still good and Bruce Pearl's at Auburn and Rick Barnes is doing. All of a sudden you look up, the dang league's good. Arkansas is top 5 team now. A&M's good. So Buzz Williams is there. So all of a sudden you look up, the SEC's good. They'll look and feel more like an SEC team. They've got big guys. They've got athletic guys. I don't know how good they'll be. It's way too early to tell that. What do they pick? 6th or 7th in the league, something like that?
I looked at one thing. I did some homework for this podcast. Jay Billis ranked the top 68, and he had Florida at 38, which is a nice spot. 38's in the tournament, maybe.
That's right. That's right. And again, Fran Fraschilla, Jimmy Dykes, the guys that saw him say, don't sleep on Florida. They may be sneaky good. I've taken that bait too many times.
Yes, you have. Let's see. I'm proud of you. This is growth.
I'm growing up, Dan. I'm becoming a big growth. But this is growth. But I do think they'll look and feel more like an SEC team. And it's going to be fun to watch Kugel. Kugel's an NBA guy. We haven't had many NBA guys now, okay? You count the NBA guys we've had of late, there's not very many. Kugel went for 23. He's an NBA guy. Now, he may be at the end of an NBA bench, but he's a guy that's going to get drafted in one of those 2 NBA rounds. We haven't had that in a while. So it's a good start. We'll know more when they play Virginia coming up on Friday. So Dan, hang in there. Don't jump off I was worried about you. I'm worried about you.
Should be. It's very listen, it's a passion of ours, and it's hard. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, no question about it. That's all Things Gators. Next week, hopefully we'll have better news on both fronts. Good news on football and basketball. Dan Hicken and Frank Frangie.
Thank you, Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, se-ortho.com for all your orthopedic needs. Frank, have a great week. We'll talk to you.
You too.